Restoring Darkness is brought to you by Evluma, illuminating the pursuit of dark skies.
Welcome back to the Restoring Darkness show. On today's show, I have Dan Jobbins. He is a lighting designer based out of New York's beautiful Hudson Valley. He graduated from Boston University's College of Fine Arts with a BFA in theatrical lighting design. He has had a 15-year career designing lighting for theaters up and down the East Coast, as well as for high-profile events in the New York metropolitan area. During the pandemic and resulting shutdowns of arts and entertainment venues, Dan pivoted towards landscape lighting, securing a position with one of the oldest landscape lighting companies in the Northeast. He later struck out on his own to form Hudson Valley Holidays, which started as a holiday lighting company, but has grown to include all manner of outdoor and landscape lighting design. Dan takes pride in placing the highest emphasis on quality design and services within the Hudson Valley Holidays, a big part of which is striving for dark sky compliance. Dan, welcome to the Restoring Darkness podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
You know, it's interesting. I really love Christmas lights and holiday lights and celebrations and stuff like that. And, you know, one of the things I often say is, you know, we can probably have our cake and eat it too with this, you know, when it comes to night preservation, just by using simple timers and devices and controls to shut things off when we're not celebrating. I don't know if that's a good introduction to this, Dan, but, you know, what's your take on all of that?
No, I think you're definitely right. I mean, you know, in my world of, you know, low voltage landscape lighting, holiday lighting, you know, the big tenets, you know, of light pollution in terms of dealing with sky glow isn't something we concern ourselves with overly. You know, most of our fixtures in the landscape lighting world are 5, maybe 7 watts. You know, versus street lighting or commercial parking lots or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then similarly in the holiday lighting world, really nothing's that bright that it's I would think, a major concern to the ecosystem. Of course, we try to limit things with timers, both from the electrical consumption standpoint, the longevity of the product, and then also being cognizant of dark skies. You know, for me, the bigger thing that I think about when I'm approaching a project, as it pertains to, you know, darkness restoration or night sky preservation, it's more about all the other aspects of light pollution, right? It's about eliminating glare. It's about, you know, they talk about the visual clutter, making sure that you don't have a bunch of spots all over the place, which becomes a thing potentially within holiday lighting. But there, it's small pinpoints of light, right? You do a roof line with, you know, little C9 or C7 bulbs. They're tiny. You know, and they're only up for a month max, you know, maybe a month and a half, depending on when we get around to our takedowns that season. So it really becomes less about, like I said, less about sky glow or anything like impacting wildlife, more about impacting the other humans in the environment. Shining a light that looks beautiful on your tree, but shines directly in the bedroom windows.
Well, you know, it's interesting because there's been a sort of progression with humans and outdoor light at night, and you know, if you go back to the Eiffel Tower, say in France, I don't know if you've ever been on the Seine River and floated by it at nighttime and you see it. It's very beautiful. So I think what's happening is outdoor light at night or electric light at night is transitioning from being assumed to be beautiful and create safety to starting to take on this reputation as being a touch ostentatious and then maybe conspicuous. And I think we're on the path to, you know, conspicuous outdoor lighting becoming grotesque, actually.
Absolutely.
You know, when you look at the World Trade Center, when you go there, they only turn the lights on very rarely now because they had so many dead birds. Millions of dead birds. And you think the same thing about the what's that one in Las Vegas, that's shaped like the pyramid with the light shoot, Luxor. You know, there's something grotesque about I don't care if it's human death or animal death. There's something grotesque about that much of an impact for what? You know what I'm saying? And I think we're on the path to that. Is, you know, this type of lighting where you have landscape lighting on a big home and that sort of stuff, Are your customers asking you to have controls, or are you having to sell that to them?
Um, no, I mean everyone wants controls. I'll generally talk people away from the sort of photo cell on for on when it gets dark, off when it gets bright, and push people towards timers or smart controls. Personally, from my own experience, I've been moving away from the smart controls, to be honest, more towards just dumb timers. I find that the headaches of once now that there are more and more network devices in a home, adding new layers of it is just complicated. Really, it comes from my own experience. We recently had to replace our Wi-Fi router, and it was a nightmare going through my landscape lights, my Roku, my all my like Internet of Things I had to reset, and ultimately, people aren't adjusting the ons and offs that often over the course of a year, right? So you can set it at come on at whatever 8 p.m., go off at 11 p.m. on the
Mm.
timer, and that's really it, right? I would say that all of my clients who have smart controls, I doubt any of them have ever changed the timing settings from the first time they installed it.
Yeah,
So I prefer to keep it set.
the importance of
And
digital accessibility to lighting to the person that sits under the light is vastly overestimated by the controls community. People do not want to have alerts on their phone from their lighting system. Okay, they
yeah,
if you give someone control, they usually set it and forget it, and that's the end of it. I agree with you. I think one of the greatest inventions we have for this space for outdoor lighting, I don't know if it's not so good for landscape, but just for outdoor lighting, and I have them at my house, is a intermatic timer where you push the button. It's 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, or 2 hours, and
hmm
you just push the button and it goes to 15 minutes. You push it twice, it goes to 30 minutes. You push it 3 times, it goes to an hour. You push it 4 times, it goes to 2 hours. You push it again, it goes off. That is such a simple, because I tried actually occupancy sensors on the outdoor of my house, but
hmm
they're being tripped all the time by all sorts of different things. So I just switched to that. And
yeah,
I find it's way more effective and generally along the lines of what people want. A switch.
yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of times people think they want smart controls because that's the selling point for everything, and as soon as you talk them through it, they're more than happy. And if they really want it, I mean, I'm happy to sell them a Wi-Fi controlled transformer. Like, it's no skin off my back. Honestly, as a contractor, it's more money in my pocket. But once they never make full use of it, so for me, it's not dollars that are well spent. So it's keeping it dumb is easier. People think they want more than they do. Same thing, honestly, with a lot of the color changing stuff. People ask me about color changing, and you talk through like, well, when are you going to use it? Well, maybe if the Giants win the Super Bowl, we'll change the Giants colors. Regardless of your opinions on the Giants. But like, are you really going to do that? Like, are you really going to walk around with your phone and reprogram your lights? Like, again, if it's something that people are interested in, it's a service that we provide, but it's not something that's as much demand as honestly even the industry seems to think there is.
I think also the fussiness of controls, even for people that configure controls, so controls integrators or people that are experienced with it, they struggle with the commissioning of these digital control systems. Don't kid yourself. And so to expect a person to download an app on their phone, and the other thing too is like, is the app even accessible with the, I mean, you have Bluetooth problems with older cars with the new phone,
Mm-hmm.
never mind a lighting system, which is supposed to have a 25-year lifetime. Are you really going to be using a Samsung Galaxy in 2035? I mean, that's going to address
Yeah,
the system, and are they going to send you updates, or I don't know, man. It just doesn't seem like something that's very wise to me,
yeah,
especially
and then
for
it
homeowners.
comes down to the what is it the good, fast, and cheap, or in this case, good, easy, and cheap option, right? You can only pick two. Most
Hmm.
people are going to pick cheap, so you're going to have a good, or you can have it easy, but it's hard to get to something that's not going to blow people's budgets, right? I'm not putting in a full DMX control system into somebody's landscape lighting. Uh, and when we're looking at stuff that's lighting manufacturer that turns out a Bluetooth app to go with it, like how good is the app? It's difficult to pair. Once it's paired, it's difficult to attach to the lights. But to go back to what you're saying about the sort of shift towards ostentatiousness in landscape lighting, that's something that I also am very sensitive to. I think that there's a lot of situations where people confuse um, impressive lighting with good lighting, right? Like
Hmm.
you can put 100 lights out into somebody's yard, and you walk by or you drive by, and wow, and then you realize that really what you're responding to is not the quality of the design, but just like the sheer amount of light that they've pumped into their garden. And the thing, for one thing, and what I talk my customers through is, uh, it, it goes, if you go too far, it goes down this road of looking like a commercial business, right? It looks like a hotel. It looks like a bed and breakfast when really it doesn't look like a home, right? Every tree has a light on it. Every plant has a light on it. There's, every aspect of the architecture is uplit as bright as it can be. Like, and people don't want that. People want their homes to feel homey. Even the people who live in big mansions, still want them to feel warm and intimate and attractive to them personally when they come up. So it's you need the darkness, right? You can't just pump light into an area and call it good lighting, right? You need and that ties into darkness restoration. Is you need it not just for the ecosystem and the environment, but you need it to actually create good design, right? You need to have elements of the yard that are darkness. You need that are in darkness. You have like texture and levels and different levels of intensity, right? You can't just pump everything full of light and light everything and expect it to look good. It'll look impressive, and probably the first time you turn it on, the homeowner will say, "Wow, I love it. It's looks incredible," and maybe their friend will come over and say the same thing. But it doesn't mean that it's actually good design. It just means that it's a lot of lights that are now, in
It's the Eiffel Tower. I don't care. I don't think that's ever gonna. That memory of seeing the Eiffel Tower on a Seine River cruise was spectacular. I don't think I'm ever gonna lose that. But
yeah.
there's something about light pollution that people don't take seriously. So people, if somebody was dumping their raw sewage into the wastewater drain, they would certainly hide that from others, right? But people seem to
Mhm.
produce light pollution, and they feel no way about it. They think it's fantastic. That's changing. But how do we can
Mhm.
when do you talk to people when you're selling them, hey, what we're doing here with landscape lighting is we're creating light pollution. And so and it says here, striving for dark sky compliance. Landscape lighting is light pollution. There's no security element to it. There is there's perhaps a celebratory element to it. And so for me, the only way that it can be compliant is if it is on some kind of timer and off by a certain time. Am I correct in assuming that, or is there a way to create uplight that's dark sky compliant?
Well, I'd say, I mean, there's definitely more to it than just putting on a timer, because if that was the case. If it was just about controls, it would be, we wouldn't think twice about it. We just do it. But there's also, I mean, in terms of looking at the fixtures, and also a lot of it's how the fixtures are aimed, right?
Mm.
Fixtures lighting should serve a purpose, right? That's part of the
hmm
dark sky and the dark sky uh,
The five
associations.
principles of responsible outdoor lighting. Yes, it has a purpose.
Exactly, right? So the light should serve a purpose, which can be aesthetic, um, as long as it's controlled, right? You want as many of the lumens or the watts that are leaving the light to be actually projected onto whatever the object is that you're lighting, whether it's a pillar on the home or maybe it's an ornamental tree.
hmm
Um, there's an emphasis on shielded lighting, right? So path lighting, hardscape lighting that has like full cutoff, deck lighting, which honestly, aesthetically, even before I sort of got involved in the dark sky community, was where my mind always went anyway. I always like the idea of sort of soft pools of light to create your areas
hmm
that people move through. And it does. I know that in terms of security, it has limited effect, although it does have effect in terms of people feeling safe, which people feeling safe at their home, outside their homes, is valid. But it does have effect in terms of safety, right? Just steps, walkways, transition areas,
hmm
if you're moving from a paved area to a grass area. But I think it's undeniable that adding lighting for those trip hazards and stuff like that. And
Sure.
that's something that people ask about too. Oh, I forgot to take out the trash, and it's dark. So, which is usually an add-on. I don't do a lot of like trash can lighting. But if I'm doing someone's backyard, that'll something like, oh, when we let the dogs out at night, I need to be able to see where I'm going. So we have there as well. But for me, and the approach in terms of the relationship with light pollution and creating designs that minimize the light pollution, and that's part of it too. That it's, if they don't hire me, who's going to come to it with a sensitive approach to light pollution, they're going to hire somebody else who is going to go down the road of like, oh, well, no, you need 20 lights there and you need 30 lights there, and just point it, So I'm not in the business of saying no to it. All right, it's all about saying yes to it responsibly, right? So okay, so you want lighting, that's valid and fine, and that's what I do. That's why you call
Mm-hmm.
me.
Sure.
Um, but part of my job is to make sure then that it's done responsibly. And a lot of times I don't even sell them on the idea of dark sky compliance or light pollution because it can be a tough nut to swallow for clients. So the answer is you just go and do it yourself, right? They say, hey, I want lighting. And I say, great, I'm going to come up with a design for you that reduces glare. I make sure that the light is only shining on what you want to light. We really focus on your beautiful plantings and your beautiful architecture. We'll make sure that it's not annoying your neighbors. So special, full cutoff fixtures with adjustable glare shields. And we'll make sure that it's not visually confusing. There's all a nice warm color temperature, and it goes on and off. It's only on when you need it, and people love it. And like right there, you've put together a dark sky friendly, I should say, package, and the client doesn't even know it.
Hmm.
So the idea is you don't give them a choice, right? If you a lot of clients, if you come in and you right off the bat, you say, all right, like light pollution is bad. This is what we're gonna
It's
do.
not
And
a good sale. It's not a good sales strategy yet. I
right,
could,
exactly.
I couldn't agree with you more. So, I'm the host of the Restoring Darkness podcast, and I don't do a lot of landscape lighting. So that's more
Hmm.
of as you can see, the progression of your career is leading towards that, right? Towards that aesthetic value of light, how to create focus on things and all that. I'm more into the industrial commercial space. Very difficult to sell people less light. It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, when I say almost impossible, I mean almost impossible. Like you have to have the client has to call in looking for that. If you go to a client and say,
Hmm.
"Yeah, you're gonna change the lights on the back of your factory, and we're gonna put shields in, and we're gonna warm it up to the color of HPS," but hang on a second, why am I doing this? Well, there's also a rebate, and you're gonna save energy. But no, we want to project that light back further. We want to have more sky. Like basically, what clients say to me is, we want more sky glow, more light pollution. That if you you
Yeah.
know that's what they want. That's what the deliverable is for them. And so I think we're
Hmm.
a ways away from that. I think in my opinion, the only way to conquer the commercial industrial light pollution is through regulation. People are not going to
Yeah.
choose this voluntarily. They're just not going to do it.
Absolutely.
Um,
I mean, also, you have to go around and convince not even every single contractor, every single customer that they want this versus, one government or, whether it's at the municipal, county, state, whatever level, that regulation, sort of takes care of it. And then, it takes that decision out of every single designer and every single contractor and every single electrician and every single customer all having to get on board with it.
yeah, and just as an aside, right now in the middle of the show, I've never done this before. I'm going to do it right now. That's why we started the Lighting and Darkness Foundation, folks. It started by people on the front lines of the lighting industry. And we started the foundation because we find it extremely difficult to sell this and almost impossible, actually, when you're selling to contractors and commercial properties. And so if you want to help us in our work, just go to restoringdarkness.com and click the donate now button. That's right. We're a 501c3. You're going to get a charitable receipt. We're going to create education. We're going to do advocacy on the ground and support. And we're going to teach people all over North America to be certified. We're going to call it Darkness Specialist 1, and then we're going to do 2 and 3. So just go to the restoringdarkness.com website, click donate. That's right. We're going to make this thing happen, and we're going to start by training the lighting industry. Dan, back into the dealing with the clients again. So you're creating, and I actually love. You corrected me there. When I'm thinking of landscape lighting, I'm thinking of these ground-mounted fixtures shining up on everything, right, around the garden or around the
Hmm.
house. But I forgot about the step lighting and the bollards and all of that wonderful equipment is much better for light pollution if we're lighting from a low area and spreading the light out horizontally. So if the optics are set so that the light is set down and to spread across a surface, first of all, it looks way better, Dan. And second of all,
I agree. Yeah.
it's the best. It's the best lighting to reduce sky glow and it just looks amazing. Tell me a little bit more how you incorporate that into your stairwell lights and your pathway lighting.
So the key thing, I mean, manufacturers tend to lump, uh, they call it pathway and area. They lump together. But you'll see sort of two types of fixtures, right? One is, and I would say they sort of fall into, they have different shapes, so fall into jump. One is the sort of what we think of as traditional path lighting is, the stem with like a conical hat over it that projects light down into a circle around. And there's square hats, whatever, all bright. Then on top of that, there's more directional ones, which will be almost like a little mini spotlight on top of the post, right? So it comes up and there's an L and there's a little tiny spotlight that shines down. Which those I like for especially stairs, pathways, where you're not really interested in lighting what's around, right? The conical ones, which give you the circle of light, are nice if you have plantings around it that you want to highlight as well. Sometimes you put it in the middle of the garden because it gets some of the lower lying ground cover lit. It's less of a functional path light, or it can be used for more than just a directional path light. Also common is marker lights, which are a flush-mounted light, which project a very thin beam of light that basically just grazes across the surface.
Love those.
Which those are useful, especially for if you want to do a pathway where there isn't something to light, for instance, or a lot of times they get used if you're doing a pathway through grass, because everyone in the landscape industry knows that path lights are like magnets for lawnmowers. And you put path lights up, and then your landscaper comes through, and you're replacing path lights up once a month. The marker lights are lower to the ground. Challenge. And they create a visual path, right? So they give less light to the general area, but if you're looking from the back of your house down to say a dock, right, you can see the markers of light that guide you to where you go.
I think a good word for that is wayfinding. Like if we were to incorporate, so one of the things that I find in the lighting industry is like the term, and love the Dark Sky International. I love what they do. I love the Dark Sky Preserves and all that sort of stuff. But when on our committees, we found the term dark sky difficult to understand because we actually want a bright sky filled with stars. And dark sky has a connotation of negativity to it. So we like to use the word restoring darkness, preserving night, and creating wayfinding solutions that are not necessarily electrical. Right? Sometimes you can use bioluminescent materials. They use them on planes and all that sort of stuff. You can also use these types of different kinds of lights that are sunk into the ground that are very, very, very low lumens, but they show you the way. We want to incorporate these kinds of terms into lighting industry so that we have darkness practitioners as well as lighting practitioners. So people are starting with the idea of preserving darkness and are preserving night. And incorporate it into their design or at the base level of the thought process. The problem I see right now, it's not that the lighting industry doesn't want to do that. It's that the customers aren't ready for it, Dan. They don't think in terms
Absolutely,
of
yeah. People, and that's sort of what I was alluding to before in terms of pitching the idea of dark sky to a customer. It's tough for them to swallow. They have a solution in their mind. So especially, for me as a lighting practitioner, by the time they've approached me, they've basically made up their minds that they want lighting. So it can be tough to sway them to go down a different road. And it also comes down to one of the tenets of, design or really any sales, whether you're selling lights or cars or towels at Bed Bath & Beyond, is figuring out what it is the customer wants, right? So, and that's part, a customer might say, well, I want lights in my backyard. I want to light it up. Well, why? Well, as you talk to them, you learn, okay, so it's not that they want more light, or it's not that, it becomes like, well, when I go to take out the trash, for instance, it's dark, or when I walk down to my dock, it's difficult to see, or, my kids are playing in the play set back there. I want to be able to see them and be able to have them get back and forth to the deck safely. Right? So you assess what the actual needs are, and then you can create solutions that are more tailored to them. By making more specific design choices, you're also potentially eliminating the number of fixtures, the amount of light that's being put in the yard that might be necessary, and you're giving them a better experience, right? You're giving them exactly what it is they want, while also being better for the environment and creating happier customers. So that's what, like I said before, right? It's in my world, it's not about saying no to lighting. It's about saying yes to lighting, but doing it responsibly. Right? I hold the reins in terms of what goes in, because ultimately, if I propose a dark sky friendly design or a darkness friendly design, and the customer says like absolutely not, like I want floodlights or whatever, I have the option to talk. But it's better if I can keep them in the fold and find out what they want and find out a way to do it in a way that doesn't have as many negative impacts. Like I said, if I say no, there's 150, electricians out
Yeah,
there
for
who
sure.
put up 1,000 watt, floodlight over the top of their garage, and that's it. Like it'll blind the neighbors, and they'll love it because they can see their and that's I've been seeing more of that, and I live in the Hudson Valley, so I'm about an hour north of New York City, so I'm pretty well into the woods. It's dark out when it's dark out, and little by little, I've been seeing it start to encroach in our area. Uh, Lights that are less friendly, and you notice it. You really do notice it, and especially, from an area that's started out dark. When I moved up here a few years ago, if I walked my dog at night, it was, I would have them have my flashlight and like keep my eyes out of the bushes around me. And now it's getting brighter and brighter, and all of a sudden, like, I don't need my flashlight anymore. But also,
Yeah.
I can't really see this as much anymore.
Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah.
We find ourselves in the same boat, just in slightly different areas of the industry. I often ask myself, these lesser of evils. It's better that I take the money and
Mm-hmm.
and create the light pollution, because these people are going to do it anyway. There's just no stopping it. And at the end of the day, I'm not in the lighting design position. I'm a distributor. I sell lighting equipment. I have these lines. The products are on the lines of that. And so that's where one of our committees at Nailed stepped back and made the 6 industry strategies for darkness restoration and night preservation, which I thought were amazing. And it starts off with advocacy and awareness, and then training and certification and incentives and enforcement, all these different
Mm-hmm.
areas. Because if you're asking the lighting industry to say no to sales, that's not going to happen.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. People have to make a living. And so that's where we need regulation in it, and then we need those regulations to be enforced so that the compliers are rewarded and not squeezed. So what generally
Yeah.
happens with regulation is, and this is in Ontario, and I have a lot of experience with it in Ontario, other than the Electrical Safety Authority, which does a fantastic job enforcing the regulations here. They inspect the jobs, they make sure that they're electrically good. Are they perfect? No, but every electrical contractor has the Electrical Safety Authority in the back of their head, right? I got to keep it tight,
Mm-hmm.
otherwise I'm going to get in trouble. I'll lose my license, whatever, right? With other regulations, they're just not enforced. Somebody writes it on paper, and that's the end of it. And nobody
Sure.
goes around and says, hey, this light is against the lighting ordinance, and every day you have 3 weeks to take it down or change it to something that's appropriate, and until after the 3 weeks it's $50 a day or something like that. There needs to be some sort of, we need that carrot and the stick, because without the stick, you're only going to squeeze the compliers and reward the non-compliers. So
Mm-hmm.
we, as a society, if we want to accomplish this goal of eliminating, or I wouldn't say eliminate, we'll never eliminate it, but to significantly reduce or abate light pollution, and for all of the great reasons to do that, we need enforcement. And that's what, I think you and I are coming to the conclusion here. There's really nothing we can do about this as lighting professionals without that. Without that call
Right.
to action from the enforcement side. And that's going to be a big job.
Yeah, I mean, especially the questions comes to where does that fall? Is it at the municipal level, and is it small towns, which probably in some ways feel it more, right? Like a rural town of 700 people, like they don't have someone who's driving around at night. They can't pay somebody to drive around at night. They'll probably spend more money on that person's salary than they'll get on tickets or whatever they
Depends how
fines they
much they
issue
charge for the
lighting things
tickets.
like
Depends on how
that.
much
I
they
guess
charge
that's
for the
true.
tickets,
I guess
buddy.
that's true. Well, yeah,
Um,
they'll pay them out of commissions, maybe.
you know what's interesting, on the profile of the Restoring Darkness podcast website, it has a bio about me, and one of the things that I
Hmm.
truly believe is that the solutions to all our problems should be revenue generating, and that we should always look to generate revenue in order to solve our problems. And a lot of people don't know what I mean by that. And there's a lot of things that I mean. I mean that if a business can, if somebody can if we can create an environment where a business can exist that solves that problem while paying people who pay taxes and while paying taxes to the government, it's way better than giving money to the government and having them set something up. You understand what I'm saying? And if we have a government, then the department should look that its activities be funded by fines 100%. You understand what I mean? And if they can't do that in an area like this, like for example, there's a huge industrial area just north of my farm that creates so much light pollution. It's absolutely grotesque. And it's new because they just switched all the lights in that industrial park slowly over the last 10 years to LED. And it's disgusting. The township of Uxbridge should go find those people $1,000 a week for every week that they're not within the ordinances of the township of Uxbridge. It's very simple.
And I think that's something too in terms of thinking about where this enforcement would direct this. I mean, big commercial projects like that, right? You know, a parking lot that's being built at 7-Eleven or whatever that's being built. It's already on the radar of, you know, the municipalities in terms of building permits and everything else. Like it wouldn't be, I would think, you know, not local government. I would think it wouldn't be that hard to add in a layer of that permitting process to have submitting a lighting plan that's approved by somebody with some level of knowledge and then enforced, right? Not so much, and you know, my imagination when I was thinking about it before was, you know, going after. There's a house down the street from me that I had in mind.
Yeah, sure.
Some pretty horrible lighting, but maybe, you know, homeowners. I mean, maybe that's done on a reporting basis. And also, not to necessarily encourage the idea of, you know, neighbor versus neighbor feuds, but any large commercial project that's being built is already going through governments anyway, right? So I wonder how hard it would be to add in a layer of that compliance.
I'm sure they have it. The problem is that, okay, I got a couple things here I'm going to hit you with, okay? First of all,
sure.
That sort of lighting design stuff already exists on new builds. The problem is that all of our buildings already exist. So all of the light pollution is from buildings that already exist and lights that are already there. And so this focus on new construction that's so prevalent in the lighting design community and in the regulation community, well, let's just solve it through new construction or major renovations that require the permitting process. Well, guess what? To change a 1,000-watt metal halide to a 300-watt LED in Ontario does not require a building permit. It only requires an electrical permit, right? So, and 100% of all of the light pollution is on buildings that already passed the permitting process, right? So we can't go back and fix it by new construction permits or major renovation permits. That's the first thing. The second thing, to solve your neighbor problem, the first thing, you don't want to get into ever neighbor versus neighbor. You just want to send them an anonymous letter through the mail. Just write them a really kind note in the mail. Folks, I have said this so many times in the show, and people look at me squirrely. I do this all the time, and it works amazing. It's never failed. The only time it fails is when it's not a residential neighbor, when it's a commercial or industrial neighbor. They completely ignore my letters. Okay?
I'm sure, yeah.
They couldn't care less. This one guy on the road has this giant sign. It's an LED pixel sign. And you can see it all the way from kilometers away. You can see it on the horizon. And you know what else bothers me about it? He likes to put political messages up on his sign. And you know what? I tend to agree with his politics, I guess, in some ways. Like I tend to, we both dislike the same prime minister quite a bit. But I if I didn't agree with him, I'd really hate it if people did that. You know what I'm saying? Like if I was driving down the road and somebody had some big sign about political thing that, I didn't agree with, and I have to read that every time I go by just because it's on his stupid property, that should be totally illegal to do that. Second of all, that sign, why is it on at 3 o'clock in the morning? Workers wanted, he has sometimes up there. Please apply with it. Like as if you want anyone going by at 3 o'clock in the morning to apply for a job. So this type of this type of commercial light pollution is completely and totally unnecessary, and it's grotesque. actually, and we can solve that because those corporations have the money to pay significant fines. And if you were Uxbridge or Stouffville or Paducah, Kentucky or whatever, get out the books and look at your ordinances and go around and find people and create some revenue for the county that's going to go to great things, and tell people to change
do a
their
once
rights.
yearly checkup. Go around and check on everybody, and
just drive around.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like it's like you said. I mean, it's like we say, it's commercials. This can be the biggest offender in like existing properties, which is it's tougher to track down. People make changes all the time, so it's compliance and it's enforcement and it's continuous enforcement, right? People can swap it out for whatever, and then especially if it's a fixture, a bulb, whatever, people can play games that way. In terms of what you're saying too about the signs, the signs, it's like it's like someone shouting in a room. It doesn't matter if you like what they're saying. Somebody shouting in your ear is going to get on your nerves regardless, no matter what.
I don't care if you agree with me or not. I don't really care to hear your opinions, but I'm not interested in your political opinions that you're putting out on the road. It should be completely illegal. But anyway, that's separate from the light pollution piece, which is even worse.
Yeah.
The light pollution piece. And, I happen to agree with the guy and his opinions or whatever every now and then. I'm like, okay, good point. But turn off the damn sign and nobody cares what you think about the Prime Minister or the Premier of Ontario or the Mayor of Uxbridge for that matter. So the other side of it is that this hopelessness of regulations. And in talking to you, and the feeling I get from everybody is like, yeah, right. Nobody's ever going to do that, right? That's kind of your, when you're talking about, it's like, yeah, that would be a great idea, but fat chance, pal. They are never going to do it. I actually think we can change that. I think that the townships and the municipalities should look at people's outdoor lighting at night, and they should have a set of fines based on the square footage of your house. So, and I would say that probably the most of the offenders with lots of outdoor lighting are probably wealthy people. And, you can send them a letter in the mail from the township saying, hey, you got 1 week or 3 weeks or 6 weeks to solve your light pollution problem. And if you don't, we're going to check on it. And you can appeal to this person here. And this is the appeal process. This is what townships and municipalities are in the business of doing.
And I would say, I mean, it would have to be something that's, before we write tickets to all of my customers. So it would have to fall in within certain bounds, right? I mean, and that's where it comes into the ideas of light trespass and clutter and responsibly designed lighting, right? Lighting that's responsibly designed isn't obtrusive, right? And it's not an eyesore. And again, under certain lumens, per acreage or whatever, it's not necessarily even particularly contributing to sky load and light pollution in that regard. So I think it's it has to be designed within parameters that could be set by. I don't know whether it would be set. I mean, it would be challenging as a designer and practitioner. It would be challenging for it to be set by the municipality because then I do a house and I go 3 blocks over to do somebody else's house and it's a different set of regulations. I don't know if it exists on the state level or if it's created by AOLP, right, the Association of Outdoor Lighting Professionals, or any of the other industry organizations that are adopted by municipalities. Right. So I don't think that the goal is getting rid of landscape lighting.
No way.
Because then I'll be looking for a job.
This is a
it's about managing it, right? It's the yes, but responsibly.
This is the tentativeness that I can feel it in you again. What most people in the lighting industry don't understand, Dan, is that if we started doing this, as long as we're ready for it. So NAILD's getting ready, the Lighting and Darkness Foundation's getting ready to help out. If we did this would be a bonanza for you, Dan. It would be the greatest thing that ever happened. Because people, if you just said, no, it's not that you can't have outdoor lighting, you just have to operate between these smart rules. And the people that are trained on that would get all the wins. They would get all the money from it. And this is where we get rid of Johnny-come-lately and the lighting marauders. We get rid of the lack of, we introduce expertise into the sales process. We introduce certification into the sales process. And we work, it's not that electricians aren't against the Electrical Safety Authority. They love it because it keeps the riffraff out of the business, keeps the costs, professionals. It prevents the erosion of expertise. And I think that we could, if we as an industry got together and started making, active advocacy towards municipalities, we could set up a system that totally inured to our benefit financially, while restoring darkness to our light polluted environments and preserving night where it exists. I mean, I think you're looking at it the wrong way.
I think that the landscape lighting industry, especially, is unique to that versus the commercial lighting industry. I think that, one of the things that we sort of joke about is our biggest competition is the homeowners themselves. There's nothing stopping a homeowner from going to a big box store or Amazon and buying a kit of, 75 lights for a fraction of what I would charge to begin with. So if you start introducing hurdles to the installation of especially landscape lighting, is where, it would impact my industry. I think that part of it, though, is it would be written into the regulations that, whether it's based on voltage, right, whether it's low voltage systems are exempt, or in terms of total lumens per, there'd have to be controls written into it so that, again, otherwise a lot of homeowners will just say, well, I just won't bother, right? Like, we do everyone in the industry does a lot of small jobs, right? We all have our handful of big multi-$1,000 jobs, but a lot of us are bigger. Our bread and butter is the smaller, $3,000, $4,000, handful of lights here and there projects.
I love those projects. Those are my favorite.
Yeah. Part of the reason I love small projects is that it's usually, if it's a small project, if it's a small project for me, it means that it's a big project for the homeowner.
Sure it is.
Right?
Yeah.
A homeowner that can write a check for $30,000 for landscape lighting isn't thinking twice about it. A homeowner that writes a $3,000 check, that's probably a bigger chunk of money for them proportionally, and they're going to love it. It means a lot. But if they know that there's a risk that they could get a fine for it, they might just scrap the project up. Right. So that's why I think that.
So here's what I'm telling you. These regulations are coming whether you like it or not. They may come in 5 years or 10 years, but there's so much action on this issue. The amount of we have a program here that tracks the every single English language article or research project or anything in the world that's put out onto the internet about this issue. And the news is just going like this. Almost a straight line of how fast the amount of information about this issue is coming out. My opinion is that we should grab the bull by the horns, whether it's the lighting distributors or the Association of Outdoor Lighting Professionals. We need to come together now and tell the regulators that this is how you should regulate this. This is how it should be done for landscape lighting. This is how it should be done for outdoor commercial lighting. This is how it should be done for factory lighting. And we're all trained up and ready to go with our darkness specialist.
No, I think you're 100%, correct on that. If, like you said, if these regulations are coming, it needs to be the landscape, or the lighting industry that drives them. Because, if we don't regulate ourselves, someone's going to come in and regulate us, and it'll be written by bureaucrats and lobbyists who, really just want to write the best sounding bill that'll get, approved by voters.
It's already happened in the light. It already happened in the lighting industry once. It already happened once. Dan, with the when it came to lighting equipment, accreditation agencies stepped in. Okay, and a lot of people don't like it when I say this. Okay, they don't like it, but they pushed all of the lighting professionals aside. And the lighting industry was squabbling about how to do LED right and the transition from legacy technology to LED and sustainability and standardization and all the things, the processes that go on. And because they were so, like that nobody knew what to do, I've been in the lighting industry for 25 years personally. And I didn't know what to do at that time. And storied companies that are hundreds of years in the business were kind of like, we're not sure about this, if this is the right way to go or this is the right way to go. And guess what? A nonprofit accreditation agency stepped in and said, fine, you guys can't decide. You're going to do it our way. And they've been dictating to the lighting industry ever since. And
Right. And yeah,
so, I mean, either we do it or it happens to us. This is the same thing.
exactly.
We're in the same, it's, whether it's the LED boom, it's 2013 right now in the LED boom, and somebody's going to step in here, and it might be an astronomer, or it might be somebody that doesn't know that much about lighting, and they're going to step in and they're going to tell us what's up. Or we can get our act together, Dan, and we can present to the regulators. We can work with ordinances. We can reach out to the bylaw officers, let them know that the Lighting and Darkness Foundation, which is created by lighting distributors, go to the restoringdarkness.com right now.
Right now.
Click the donate button, lighting people. We're on this for you guys. This is what we're going to do, the Lighting and Darkness Foundation. We're not competing with anybody out there. We're lighting professionals. We want to help people on the ground that have dark sky issues, that are in battles about this sort of stuff with ordinances. We want to create education. We want to do research. We want to do all sorts of different things. So click that button. Why not become a monthly donor while you're at it, folks? That's right, because we're going to take this thing down. And that's what this foundation is created to exist. So that being said, there's a little spiel for me, Dan. We're at 45 minutes. I can't believe it's been 45 minutes. Can you?
No, time flies. We haven't.
Wow. Yeah, it sure does. Do you have any final thoughts from the landscape lighting? I'd love to have talked to you a little bit about your time as a lighting designer, but we don't have time for that now. So maybe in the future down the road. Any final thoughts out there for our listeners?
I think, like I said, especially for directed more towards the lighting practitioners, like we said, the answer is yes, but responsibly, right? It's don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? If you have the chance between everyone doing a little bit is better than a few people doing a lot. So start thinking about it in your designs and start implementing what you can, where you can. And little by little, it'll change the aesthetics, it'll change the designs, and it'll change the industry in terms of demand, right? If people stop speccing big giant floodlights and everything and start speccing shielded glare cutoff, warm color temperatures, that's the way it's going to go. And people want what they see, and we start putting out things that are more along the lines of what we're all striving for, and little by little it'll change. And get out there, and if you have an opportunity to help create these regulations, do it. Because like we said, we have to either regulate ourselves or we're going to get regulated. So we need to be the driving force, or else someone's going to sweep in and do it for us, and then we'll, who knows? We'll be working from our back foot rather than trying to lead.
Well, I couldn't agree with Dan Jobbins anymore on that last part, except to say that, folks, this is happening. There's just so much momentum behind this issue. If you could see what I see right now, we already have talk in the UK Parliament a couple months ago, a whole commission. The National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors had some panels, and I really love what they came up with. With what Dan was talking about right there was that within your practice, try to restore darkness to our light polluted environments. It's a call to action. restoringdarkness.com. Restoring darkness. Start thinking like that. Preserving night where it exists. That's why we're trying to use this new terminology so that we can pass on to you that this is an incremental problem. We're going to solve it fixture by fixture, and we're going to get better and better and better at this as time goes on. And we have all sorts of technology and controls and all sorts of things, fantastic things that we can start to implement into our practices. So start thinking about lighting and darkness all the time. And if you have a chance, I'm going to tell you one more time, go to the restoringdarkness.com website, click that donate button, and why not become a monthly donor. All of Dan's, he's got a Facebook, he's got a website called hudsonvalleyholidays.net. And I don't know if I'm going to put his email up there, but I'll put his Instagram and his Facebook up on the restoringdarkness.com website. If you want to look for Dan, you can check him out there. And for now, I'm going to bid you all adieu. Thank you for listening, and bye for now.
Look no further for dark sky-friendly products than Evluma. Since its first product launch, Evluma has carried one or more International Dark Sky Association certified models. If your customer cares about light pollution, suggest the OmniMax with shielding or the Area Max with full cutoff to reduce uplight and glare. Evluma, illuminating the pursuit of darkness.